All right, Auto One, we're going to do a battery service today. I've got a 2008 Chevy Silverado behind me, and I'm going to take the camera in here and just kind of confirm what we got. So I'll open the door, and here on the door sticker, I can see the VIN number right there. And in the top right-hand corner, 11 of 07. And we're going to come down underneath here, and we're going to look, and there is our pull for the hood. And so we've got 11 of 07 Silverado, and I'm going to come down underneath here and look and see where my latch is. If I can get this thing to focus. Yeah, and there, underneath there, it's a little dark, but the latch is right there. I'm pushing it with my finger. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the hood, which you will see here in un momento. So I'll go ahead and do that, get this guy up, and then bring you guys over here to the car. Walk you over here to this guy here, and we'll take a look at this guy here, and we'll notice that right away that we have a battery that does have cell caps, so it's not a maintenance free, so we can do a bunch of work on it. This bracket's going to be in the way, so we have these two 13 millimeter and two 13 millimeter bolts that we'll take out to get that. We notice that this is a 10 millimeter clamp bolt and a 10 millimeter clamp bolt on the negative there. You can see it in the back. So what I'm going to do is pause and grab a 13 mil deep and 10 mil deep and my ratcheting battery operated ratchet, and we'll take those off. 1 second here. So before I continue here, let me put the camera back up. Just want to remind you of a couple safety issues. Definitely got to have my glasses on because I'm dealing with a battery that's got sulfuric acid, and that's obviously problematic safety-wise because if you get sulfuric acid in your eyes, it can blind you. So I'm going to go ahead and put this camera hopefully where you can see pretty well what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these 4 bolts off here with my battery operated ratchet, and I always like to use an extension if I can. So here's my battery operated 3/8 drive ratchet, 3/8 drive, because if I put a tape measure across that square, it measures 3/8. It's got a little detent ball that wants to hold this so it doesn't want to fall off. Same thing on the end here. Got a little detent ball there so it doesn't want to let the socket fall off. So once I put it on, it snaps on. And it's going in the tightening directions, which is clockwise. So I'll flip the switch here, go in the counterclockwise direction. And I'll first use it as a manual ratchet and break these loose. Break these loose here. Break these loose here. And our whole goal here is to show you how to service a battery properly. And it's important to not let that bracket touch across the battery terminals. Even though it is painted, it might arc. So I'll pull this out and set it aside with my tools on my little bench here. And so now I've got the battery there, and it's probably a little bit difficult for you to see. I'll get a flashlight and show you where the battery hold down is. So I'll be back to you in 1 sec. Okay, so here we go. One thing I notice is in order to get this battery out, there's a hold down bolt right there. Hopefully you can see that bolt right there. But there's this brace here that has a bolt here and a bolt here. I'm going to go ahead and pull that brace out. I'll leave the camera right here. Let's see, maybe I can put the camera over here in a better position. Of course, I'm stuck. There you go. And of course, the camera doesn't want to face the way I want it to go. So let me do my best to rig it up so it will stay there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lift up just a little bit. Okay, so this is the brace I'm going to take out here. So I'll go ahead and take this guy down here off first. You can see me taking that bolt out there, pulling him off, setting him aside, and then I'll go ahead and take this one off here. And put that bolt aside, pull this brace out. And then what I'm going to do next is move the camera so you can see. I think you can see what I'm doing down there. So what I'm going to do is take this bolt off down here. And I've got a headlamp on, so it should help you to see what I'm doing. Give some light down there. This is the battery hold down bolt right here. That's what holds the battery in so it doesn't pitch into, in some cars, into a fan. In this case, pitch into the engine or something. I'm going to put this bracket on my work table. And now what I'm going to do is lift this up so you can see over here on top of the battery. And the next thing I want to do is disconnect the battery cables here and the positive one here, which you can't see because it's blocked by that. So what's important to do, and I'll pull the camera back over here, is sorry for all the shenanigans with the camera, but what's important to do is, this is the critical part where I've got to make sure that I remove the battery properly. So this is what I mean by remove the battery properly. Number one, let's go to Mitchell Protoman and look up battery removal and see if there's any special instructions for disconnecting this battery. Number two, when I take this battery off, I'm going to lose all my stereo presets and those kinds of things, memory for clock and memory for other things. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and install what's called a battery saver. And I'll show you what that battery saver is. But I'm going to show you there's a couple ways to do this. I could actually take a jumper pack and connect the red, the positive there, black to negative there. When I do that, I could risk getting a spark and causing the battery to blow up. So I could put the red to positive here and black to ground on the engine over here. And I've got a good bolt over here for doing that. Show it to you down here. So there's a really good spot because that's where the battery negative cable goes right there. So you can see that bolt right there. If I just hook that up, that will keep power to the car. The only problem is that when I'm taking this off, it's fairly likely that when I take this off, I might knock the connector off. There is something else I can do over here. This is a battery positive cable here, and it goes to this little junction box here. And this junction box, I can attach my hot cable there, and I could put my battery positive here, my battery negative right down there, and then I could keep power to everything. Or I'm going to go grab a tool and show you another way to do it. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got a jumper pack, and I've got this memory saver guy that plugs into the diagnostic link connector under the dash and then goes into what looks like a cigarette lighter right there. Okay, and you can see the lights on, so I know that I have power. I can also take a test light just to prove that this thing's going to power the car. I can go ahead and hook this test light onto the negative side there, and then come up to this pin here, and you can see the test light's lighting up. I think you can. Should be able to see the test lights lighting up. So I know this is putting power out. So I'm going to go inside the car and plug this in. All right, so here I go. I'm going to grab the camera, and hopefully I don't get my cord tangled. I'm going to go inside the car and go up underneath the dash, and then here I can see my 16-pin trapezoid OBD2 diagnostic link connector, and I'll take my battery saver, and I'll put that in. And I'm just looking down here and going, yep, the red light's on. So I should have battery power going into the car right there. So now I should be able to disconnect my battery safely without losing power. So now I should be able to safely disconnect my battery. So I've already taken the battery hold down off. The proper thing for me to do is always disconnect the negative battery cable first. Because I might block you out here, I will bring this right here. I'm going to disconnect that negative battery cable first here, and I'll go on it like this. And I'm going to go ahead and loosen this second one. I loosened the positive one, but it's important that I don't let the wrench touch the positive and touch anything else metal in the car, otherwise I'll arc. So I'm disconnecting that negative, so it's now safe for me to go ahead and disconnect. I loosened this, but it's not wanting to turn off. Safe for me to take this positive cable off, and it's not wanting to move. Now I've loosened the nut, so I'm going to have to wedge something in here to pry this apart to get this off. So I'm going to try to take a screwdriver and a hammer and see if I can just sort of tap this screwdriver and split this wedge a little bit. Hopefully that did it. It did. So now that cable comes right off. The only thing that's going to be really important at this point is that I don't let these two cables touch. Okay? That would make fireworks, and that would not be good because this thing has power to it. So I'm going to put it over here next to some plastic pieces. And just so I can show you that that battery saver's working, I'm going to go ahead and take an automotive 12-volt voltmeter, and we'll just measure the voltage across the battery cables. Well, the battery's disconnected. It should read 0 volts. Again, we're going across the battery cables. So I put the meter to V for volts. If I touch this to red to positive, black to negative first, I'm seeing 12.35 volts. Okay, that's what we expect. But now if I go to these cables, what do I see? Hey, I see 11.53 volts. So my battery saver's working. Just that my jumper pack's only got 11.53 volts. That's okay. But it is working. It's powering the system. But again, it's going to be important, especially this positive. The negative lead can touch ground because it's already attached to ground. But the positive lead, it's important I don't let that touch anything metal right now. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull my battery out. And batteries are pretty heavy, so I'm going to kind of be careful when I do this to not hurt my back. Let's see if I can get it out. It's not coming out very easy. I'm going to grab a tool. So unfortunately, my little battery carrier tool is actually missing, which would have allowed me to grab this out. So what I did is I put a stool down here so I could stand up, take my hand and reach underneath and lift the battery. And so here's the battery here. So we'll walk over to the sink and I'll show you what we'll do first. Okay, so here we are over at the sink. We're going to continue servicing this battery. That's the goal of this demonstration, is to show you how to properly service this battery. And I'm trying to get this guy down where you can see it really clearly. Okay, like that. All right. So I'm going to take some baking soda and some water and sprinkle on it to neutralize the acid. But I've got to open these caps, and I don't want to risk any baking soda getting down in there, and I open the caps and the baking soda goes in and neutralizes the acid inside the battery, because I do not want to do that. All I want to do is neutralize any acid on the outside, which tends to come out over time. So first thing I'm going to do is take my big flat blade screwdriver and pop off these caps. Put them up here. Remember, I got my safety glasses on. I got some gloves because of the sulfuric acid. It's not really bad on your skin unless you have a cut. Looking down inside, and I can see that this cell has a meniscus, but None of the others do. So the water's a little bit low, especially low over here in these cells. So I can take a battery pitcher like this. This is a battery pitcher. And when you push down on this guy, water comes out. So the idea is that it only gives you water when you push down, and it just keeps you from overflowing. So I'm going to look in there and I go, okay, I got a meniscus there. Push down in here. And sometimes I find this thing takes a lot of time. So what I'll do, that one's got a meniscus. So what I'll do sometimes is show you a little trick I like to do. Is I like to take the hydrometer that we'll talk about in just a moment and use it as a turkey basting bulb. So what I do is, meaning I just get some water and I just suck this up and just use it to push water in there. And so I've got a meniscus on all those. To me, this works a little faster than the pitcher, and the pitcher's fine, but you don't have to have it. You have a turkey basting bulb at home. Your mom will love it if you use it in the garage on the battery. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so now I've got all those cells full. So before I clean this battery, I'm going to go ahead and take this hydrometer. We're going to measure what's called the specific gravity. So when we suck up the liquid, you're going to see this indicator go up, and it'll give us a relative measurement of the state of charge of this battery. So this one's going up only to about 1.175. There's supposed to be in a decimal there. So that's not giving us too much, and that's kind of common though when I'm just filled it up with water. This one's going up to about 1.225. This one, if I charge this battery, this car's been sitting all weekend and I just put water in it. And so these are showing a little bit low state of charge, but they're all even. And it's not surprising me because, again, it's been sitting all weekend and I just put some fresh water in, so it hasn't had time to mix the acid all up probably. Okay, so about 1.225, and I could, on my shop sheet, if you guys were here, we would go ahead and record those readings. So what we'll do now is, now we know what the specific gravity is, and we know that it's got a little bit of a low state of charge. And remember, this is sulfuric acid now inside this, so I can clean this hydrometer out by sucking up fresh water and just rinsing it out, just so that the next person who picks this up doesn't fling this on their shirt and end up with holes in your shirt, because sulfuric acid definitely can put holes in your shirt. I'm going to go ahead and put these caps back on like that. Snap them down in there like that. And I'm going to go ahead and clean the top of this battery. So what I'll do is I'll turn on some water like that. Kind of get it wetted off there. Get all this scum. And I'll go ahead and sprinkle on a little baking soda. And I'm going to go ahead and take an old toothbrush and just kind of spread the baking soda around. You can see over here we're getting some fizzing just from getting a little bit of neutralizing a little bit of acid that was on the outside of the battery. And so I'm just doing a little housekeeping, just getting it cleaned up and trying to neutralize any battery acid on the top of this battery. And just kind of cleaning off the sides. So I'll go ahead and turn on the water. And we'll just rinse this all off. Get it all cleaned up. Get all that baking soda off from everywhere. So next time we open up this battery, we won't get baking soda inside there and neutralize the acid that's in there. We do not want to neutralize the acid inside the battery. We just want to neutralize any acid on the outside. So I'm just making sure that the water is going in to the groove. And you can see I'm getting some more baking soda out of there. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to kind of lean this over. So definitely wants to wash all that baking soda out of the groove of that cell cap. I'll do it again so I get the battery nice and clean. And again, I've got my battery saver on the car, so I'm not worried about the car right now. And I'll go ahead and get all this water off. These caps do seal, so I don't have to worry about it coming out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and clean the terminals. So this is a battery brush. It's just a wire brush that'll allow me to clean these terminals off. I'll bring the camera down so you can kind of see really closely what's going on. And it should make it nice and shiny. It is. The camera doesn't do the best job seeing that. You can kind of see it. So we'll get this one cleaned up. Okay, that one's cleaned up. So we got a nice clean surface on these battery terminals. And we'll use this brush to do the same thing over here on the cable ends. So let me put the camera down here where you should be able to see what I'm doing. If I take this off, it's got a brush in here. I think you can see this. Let me just look at the camera and make sure you can. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take this guy in here and go back and forth and get all this corrosion cleaned off so that the metal of the cable end gets a really good contact against the battery. And it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go a little further. Move this out of the way. And I'm looking at it, and yeah, it looks pretty good. This brush has seen better days. So I'll go over here to the negative, and I think if I turn that way, you should be able to see. And I'm cleaning the negative one up. Again, so when I put it together, I get a really good contact between the battery and these cables. Again, I'm leaving this one over here by these plastic parts where it can't touch metal ground. So that's what we do to use this tool to clean up the battery posts and cable end connections. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take our voltmeter, and I'm going to put this so you can see it. There's a little tab here in the back so I can stand the meter up. And I'll go ahead and put red to positive, black to negative. So there's negative, there's positive. And you probably haven't been able to tell so far, but the positive terminal is larger in diameter than the negative terminal always. There's the negative, there's the positive. If I had a tape measure across it, you could really tell. But the positive is always larger than the negative, FYI. And this battery is reading 12.38 volts, and we would call this resting voltage, or truthfully, this is what we should call open circuit voltage, because there's no circuits attached to this. It's completely open circuit voltage. You say, why is it less than 12.6? Well, it's a little low on water. We added some water. Now when it charges, it'll probably come right up to 12.6. So what we're going to do now, we've checked specific gravity, and it showed the specific gravity was a little low. The voltmeter is showing it's a little low. We had added some water. We could either charge this on the bench, or we could go ahead and let the car charge it up. So I'll show you a way that we can charge it, a couple ways. And give me just a moment, I'll show you that. So I put myself over here on this bench that's kind of our battery area, and I've got a 12-volt automotive battery that gives me either a 2-amp charge or a 12-amp charge. And we like to go low and slow. When we hook these up, as soon as you plug that 110-volt cord in to the wall, this 110-volt, this is on. So what we like to do, for safety's sake, is hook black to negative, red to positive before we plug this in. Because if I had this plugged in and then I made this connection, the last connection would get a spark and potentially I could blow the battery up. So I'll plug this in. And now this guy's on. You can see the little light here showing that it's on. It says charge percentage is about 50% is what it says. I'm just going to be honest. I don't pay attention to the meter too much. I just know that when it's fully charged, this will go from yellow to green. We're going to take a voltmeter and see what the battery is on it right now while it's charging. So here's my voltmeter with my alligator leads on. These have really nice banana plugs, we call them. And so I can put a poker in there, okay, a probe, very sharp probe. Doesn't matter what color they are. It's nice if they're red and black just to make it simple, but we buy them in different colors from time to time. So I'm going to put this on to V for volts. There we go. And I'll touch it to it, and it's rating negative 13. Let me turn it so you can see a little better. Let's see, negative 13.44. And again, the glare is a little tough. So let me get it there, and I think you can see it better right there. So negative 13.5. Well, I just need to swap the leads to get it to positive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt anything. So now I'm at positive 13.5 volts. So that's the battery charger is pushing in current with about 13.5 volts pressure. It has to produce more electrical pressure than the battery already has, otherwise it won't push current into this. So again, it's charging it right now at 13 point, now it's up to 13.52, so it's going up just a little bit, slowly but surely. So we have it on a 2-amp charge right there, and it's showing it at 13.5. Now if I go to a 10-amp charge, a 12-amp charge, see what the voltage reads. Oh, 14.2, because now it's pushing in a higher amount of current. In order to do that, it needs a higher voltage. We like to charge batteries low and slow, so that 2-amp is really a better scenario for the health of the battery, because it just more slowly, more carefully charges it. Now it's up to 13.72 and dropping, and it's dropping because that higher charge rate that I just showed you excited the battery, so it has kind of a surface charge on it. So I'll go ahead and leave this for a little while, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on that 12-amp charge. And I'll leave it for a while, pause the recording here. It's at 14.3 volts. I'll leave it for, a half hour, and then we'll come check the battery with the battery charger off when we're done. So let me pause this, and we'll come back. All right, so here we go again. We're going to turn this meter on to volts, and we're going to check this guy. It's been charging for actually a little over an hour, and we're at about 14 volts, although it's dropping off a little bit, kind of going up, bouncing up and down. So let's go ahead and unplug it from the 110 volt and take the battery charger leads off. And now let's see what it reads. Probably have a little bit of what we call a surface charge on it. So it's reading 13.21 volts and dropping. And it'll drop a little bit. And so it'll be kind of cool to see 13.16, 13.15. So it's kind of excited from charging, so that it's got what we call a surface charge on it, and that'll continue to drop. What I'm going to do right now is let's check specific gravity again for a moment and see what that reads. So I'll go ahead and pop these caps off again, and let's see how we do on this guy now. So we're going to suck up some electrolyte. And now we're reading, still reading about the same, 1.225. Didn't really come up much higher. Oh, wait, let's see if it's going up. Yeah, it's about 1.225. We'll check this one. Yeah, that one looks a little bit higher. So it's obviously starting to come up higher, a little bit higher, at least on some of them, with charging. And I just want you to be able to see sort of the effect of charging the battery on voltage and specific gravity. So let's go ahead and put the battery back in, put it back together. Okay, so here we are back at the car. We've done a real thorough job cleaning. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop this battery back in as carefully as we can. Remove that negative cable, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we're in the right position. Looks like we are right about there. And what we're going to grab first is our hold down. So this hold down is going to kind of determine where this guy's going to go. So I'll go ahead and get this guy down in there. And there it goes. Just trying to get the bolt lined up at the hole. And I think I got it there. Okay. And so I'll grab my 13 millimeter with an extension, and I'll turn this to the tightening position, so it's going clockwise. And go ahead and get down there. So this ratchet's not working so well, but now that, oh, is that in there all the way? Let's take a look. Okay, so no, there's a, what there is there's a spot where this is supposed to sit. Give me one sec. Okay, so here we go. We're going to put these bolts back in. Put this bracket back in here. I actually put the battery back in backwards. I know you're laughing. It's okay. I feel your pain. You should laugh. Mr. L had put it in backwards. It wasn't fitting quite right. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the camera down there so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Maybe. I'm up there like that. Let's see if that does it. Yep. Where am I? There's the bolt. And then this one up here, if I lift the camera up, you should see that one. Making sure that's tight. And that's tight. And then I'll put this bracket back on, but before I do, let me attach the cables because they're easy to get to. So we always attach the positive cable first, push it all the way down. And then we're going to go ahead and take our little 10 millimeter guide. We don't want to over tighten this. So usually I'll do it by hand, but I can do it with this as long as I'm careful. So you can see, and if I move it back and forth, and it doesn't, okay, it does want to move a little bit, so I'm going to go a little tighter. And now it doesn't want to move, so that's good and tight. Now, the positive's attached, so now it's safe for me to attach the negative. And it does say positive here and negative here, so I am hooking up correctly. And again, I'll carefully tighten it. I'm going to do it by hand at the end so I don't over tighten it. That's really what I'm more concerned about, is over tightening it. Okay, both of those cables, if I grab the cables, neither of them want to move, so they're plenty tight enough. Now I just have to put this bracket back on. So I'll take my 4 bolts and I'll put my bracket back on here like this. I dropped one of the bolts, shocking. And got that one started. And I don't want the metal plate to touch across positive and negative terminals. So I'm starting these all by hand, grabbing my one on the ground, and putting this last one in here. Switching to my 13 millimeter, snugging these guys up. Tighten that one up. Tighten that one up. Okay, so my bracket is back in tight. Positive cable's tight, negative cable's tight. I got the hold down tight, the bracket's tight. We are all done. All right, thank you.